Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into one of the most critical and honestly most misunderstood parts of cybersecurity, the people.
Right. In the world of security, you hear this phrase constantly. And the idea is pretty simple, isn't it? You can have the best tech, the fanciest firewalls, but all it takes is one wrong click from a busy employee to bring the whole house of cards down.
But what if that's totally wrong? What if we've been looking at this backwards this whole time? Today, we're going to explore how you can turn that so-called weakest link into your strongest defense. We'll do it with 3 quick stories, all rooted in core CISSP principles. Let's get into our first act.
Okay, so our first story kicks off right where every employee's journey does, the very, very beginning. Because real security isn't just about the tech, it's about people. And that process has to start on day 1.
So you got to think about an employee's entire time with a company as this life cycle. Every single stage, from the moment you hire them to their first day to all the work they do, and right up until their very last day, each one is a security checkpoint with its own set of challenges.
Let me paint you a picture, because this happens all the time. Let's meet Alex. Alex is a new hire in marketing. On day 1, IT does the easy thing. They just drop Alex into the generic marketing user group. The problem? That group has permissions that have been piling up for years. It's a classic case of what we call privilege creep.
Now, Alex isn't being malicious here. They're just trying to do a good job, tidying up some old project folders. But because they have all this extra access, they accidentally drag and drop a folder with some really sensitive old financial data into a public team drive. They had no idea. But the potential for a massive data breach was suddenly very, very real. That's your accidental insider threat, right there.
So, what's the fix? Well, it all comes down to one of the most fundamental rules in all of security, the principle of least privilege. It's a simple idea, but it's so powerful. It just means Alex should only get access to the exact things they need to do their job, nothing more. This one concept stops accidents like this cold, and, maybe more importantly, it drastically limits the damage an attacker could do if they ever got a hold of Alex's account.
Okay, so that sounds great, right? Just give people less access. But of course, implementing controls like that isn't free. It takes time, it takes tools, and it takes money. And that brings us perfectly to our second act. How on earth do you convince the people holding the purse strings to make that investment?
This is the million-dollar question for every security pro out there. Your boss, your CEO, they don't always want to hear about technical vulnerabilities and exploits. They want to hear about one thing, the bottom line. So the key is to stop talking just about tech and start talking about money.
We do this by shifting our language. We need to move from what we call qualitative analysis, telling stories and using ratings like high risk or low risk, to quantitative analysis. Quantitative is all about using hard numbers to build a real financial case. It's about speaking the language that business leaders actually understand, dollars and cents.
Now, to get those hard numbers, we have to be super clear on what risk even means. It's not some vague, scary feeling. In the CISSP world, it's literally a formula. It's the probability that a specific threat is going to exploit a specific vulnerability and cause damage to a valuable asset. So, let's break that formula down with an example.
First things first, the asset. Let's imagine our company's customer database. What's it worth? We can't just guess. When you factor in the customer relationships, future sales, the company's reputation, let's say it's valued at a nice round $1 million. That's our asset value, or AV.
So we have this $1 million asset. Now for the scary part. What happens if ransomware hits it? Well, after we calculate the downtime, the recovery costs, maybe some regulatory fines, we figure we'd lose about 60% of that asset's total value. That percentage, that 60%, is what we call our exposure factor, or EF. And from there, the math is pretty straightforward. You take that $1 million asset value and multiply it by our 60% exposure factor. And that gives us a really important number, our single loss expectancy, or SLE. In our story, that's a jaw-dropping $600,000 loss every single time a ransomware attack gets through. But you might be thinking, a $600,000 loss is a big if. How often does something like this actually happen? We don't guess. We look at industry data for a company our size, and it tells us a major attack like this happens about once every 5 years. So on a yearly basis, the probability is 1 in 5, or 0.2. That's our annualized rate of occurrence, the ARO.
And now, this is where it all clicks into place. We take that huge $600,000 single loss, and we multiply it by our annual probability of 0.2, and we get the magic number, the annualized loss expectancy, or ALE. It comes out to $120,000 per year. And just like that, this isn't some vague what-if threat anymore. It's a predictable annual hit to the business.
And that right there, that's the power of speaking the language of risk. When you can walk into that budget meeting and show a chart like this, showing that spending $30,000 on a new control directly prevents a calculated annual loss of $120,000, the decision becomes a no-brainer. It's not an expense anymore, it's an investment with a fantastic return.
All right, so we got the money, we made the business case, now what? It's time for our final act. We're going to see how that investment in people really pays off, turning them from a liability into your most active line of defense.
See, the bad guys know something really important. Why try to break down a reinforced door when you can just get someone on the inside to open it for you? They use a whole bag of tricks to do it. Mass phishing emails, super targeted spear phishing, voice calls, text messages, and one of the most dangerous, business email compromise, also known as CEO fraud.
So let's go back to our story. Picture Maria in accounting. This email lands in her inbox. It looks like it's from her CEO, and it hits all the psychological triggers to create panic and pressure. You've got authority, I need you to do this. You've got urgency, immediately. Even that little send from my iPhone signature is a clever trick to make you forgive any weird grammar and make it seem legit.
The old way of thinking says Maria is the weak link, that she's about to click that link and send that money. But not this Maria. No way. Because of that program we just got funded, she's been trained. She takes a breath. She notices the from address is almost right, but not quite. She knows a sudden wire transfer request by email is totally against policy. So instead of clicking, she does the smart thing. She picks up the phone, calls the CEO's assistant, and confirms it's a fake. Just like that, the attack is stopped. Dead.
You see, Maria wasn't a liability. She was a human firewall. And that firewall didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was built, piece by piece, through a really strong program. It starts with awareness, telling people why this stuff matters. Then, training, showing them how to spot these threats. Then, deeper education for critical roles. And even gamification, like sending fake phishing emails to keep everyone's skills sharp and make it stick.
And really, that's the whole point of all this. The goal isn't just to make people follow a bunch of annoying rules. It's about building a real culture of security, where your employees are empowered, they're engaged, and they're recognized for what they are. Your most valuable and adaptable defense.
So, remember where we started? With that old idea that the human is the weakest link? We've totally flipped that on its head. The human isn't the weakest link. They're the most critical, most intelligent part of your security. Which leaves us with one final thought to take away with you. Your organization is already full of potential human firewalls, just like Maria. The only question is, are you building them?